On this week's Extra Ordi-Nerdy, we try to talk about important things, but mostly just bash on Big Bang Theory, because we're actual nerds.
That show sucks.
So we're back with another Extra Ordi-Nerdy, and this time we're talking about laughing at us, not with us, which I think is a huge problem with the way that geeks are portrayed on TV. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Keeping it simple over here. Yes, you guys can go home now. Nothing more to watch. The internet is over. So specifically, a couple of them that we were thinking about were Heroes of Cosplay, obviously, Big Bang Theory, King of the Nerds. That one was terrible.
King of the Nerds was pretty awful.
Yeah.
The name alone sounds terrible.
Fansploitation. It was just... wasn't there also a show called Fansploitation?
I wouldn't doubt it. That was probably the popular lead-in to King of the Nerds.
And the problem with a lot of these is they don't actually... They're supposed to be about geek culture and about, showing the love and whatnot, but when I sit down and watch them, as the type of person who actually goes out in public to dinner wearing the dress I have on right now, I don't feel like they're welcoming me into it. I mean, what do you guys feel like?
Yeah, I mean, definitely as it pertains to Big Bang Theory, I feel like the entire show is predicated on just making fun of people that are into, I don't know, like Star Trek and sci-fi and stuff like that. These characters aren't representing actual, geeks or whatever. They're just these ridiculous, caricatures. Nobody's like that. Or if they are, it's, very few and far between. It's they're not, real people whatsoever.
It's not a loving take on it, in my opinion. You've seen affectionate takes on all sorts of things before, but Big Bang Theory in particular is whole of, hey, I'm actually going to beat you up after we're done filming. That's what I always feel like. I get the feeling that the actors, when they go home, never want to read any of this stuff, would never be caught dead doing any of this, except maybe the guy that plays Sheldon.
Yeah.
Although I'm not sure.
I forget his name, but yeah. It's essentially the Johnny Depp, where it's we're assuming as far as this goes, but Johnny Depp is known for never watching any of his movies.
Mm-hmm.
So every movie he's ever filmed, he's never seen.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
According to him, who knows? But to me, it could be
he just sits at home at night and just watches him all by himself.
Exactly. Just puts some mascara on.
Jack
Sparrow.
He just goes with the Lone Ranger face paint that he had in the last movie. But considering his last couple movies, I wouldn't blame him if he didn't watch any of them.
Yeah. So, getting back to the whole laughing at us, not with us, there's a couple specific things that I have a piece of paper here to help me remember. And one of them is, in fan culture, and these guys can vouch for me on this, one of the big dreams for most fans is becoming a professional fan. I've done it. I actually write geek cookbooks for a living. These guys have a giant podcast. Tell them all about your exciting podcast.
We have an exciting podcast.
It might even have a name.
Yeah,
it's straight out of Austin.
Yeah, straight out of Austin. We also have another one called Save File Corrupted. One has to do with comic, movie, taboo news, a lot of stuff from Florida. And because Florida's it's a good kid. It's just got trouble.
Yeah.
And Save File Corrupted is all about video games and what's going on in the industry there and our limited knowledge on the topics. But regardless, we try to appeal to everybody, anybody who's willing to listen. And sometimes we attract the fans we like, and then other times there's just people like, oh yeah, so all you do is talk about video games.
Yeah, and the point being that all of us are here because we're super passionate about being a geek, and in all of our happy geek dreams, and in the geek dreams of just about everybody I've ever talked to, that's what they want to do for a living. They want to not have a day job, or no, that's not true. They want to have a day job that encompasses their fandom. But outside fandom, I feel like people look at that and go, dude, get a real job. Why would you even want to do that? And that's how it gets portrayed in all these media things, where anyone, if you see the comic book shop owner, they don't get portrayed in anything as someone who has worked their butt off for years, probably got, at least took some business courses, if not a business degree, and is struggling as a small business in this economy because they love what they do. They're always portrayed as the comic book guy on The Simpsons, or frankly the comic book guy on Big Bang Theory. If they're not this big around, then they're grossly overweight, they have no social skills. That's not been my experience with actual comic shop owners.
No. Yeah, and they're always portrayed as being cranky, and it's almost like they hate their life, you know? Despite the fact that they're doing a job that a lot of people would love to do. It's You gotta be around people that love the same things you love. You're your own business owner. Yeah, like you're saying, when they're portrayed in fiction, like they're the stereotypical geek, like you know, except for having a job, I guess. But as far as being completely antisocial, completely socially inept, and just like a jerk to everybody because they're angry at their
these
lives.
guys, again, in my personal experience, tend to be really sociable. Like, they decided to run a comic shop instead of just buying comics because they wanted to talk to other comic fans that are really into what they love, and they want to make that part of their daily life. So I hate the way that's portrayed. Another thing, Heroes of Cosplay was terrible about this one. It's not a Ren fair. We're not there in character. If you show up in cosplay at a convention, you know you're not actually Green Lantern. I know I'm not secretly a TARDIS. Although I am nerdier on the inside.
But it's expansive.
And the point being that it's always portrayed, and I'm not blaming the people on Heroes of Cosplay. I'm sure sci-fi kind of nudged them into portraying it that way. But there's the whole, like, hey, do you believe you're actually Iron Man? Because you've got an Iron Man t-shirt on, and clearly you must be insane or else you wouldn't be wearing it, right?
Clearly I have a motherboard in the back of the t-shirt, and the shirt grants me powers and abilities to be likable and extremely screen present.
Yeah.
And drunk.
Yes.
Actually,
definitely
that's
drunk.
my power.
Okay. That's not a bad power to have.
It also steals powers.
Oh.
But I live in this life every day.
Totally. I mean, he's never actually taken that shirt off. The back of it is melded to his body. It
smells like human down here.
And both of us actually have plugs in our nostrils right now.
It's literally a second skin he's wearing.
So it's like a still suit. He just kind of pressed his hand and like old Tony Stark leavings, and it climbed up his body like Emperor Leto II.
That's too far.
Sorry, it's too far.
Even that makes him break characters. Like, all right, I realize that I'm not doing this anymore.
So the point is, that, however, is exactly how people are portrayed in any of these things. If you go to a convention or if you're showing a fan, anytime you see someone in cosplay, I believe I am Wonder Woman. I believe I am the TARDIS because I know that David Tennant wants me. No, David Tennant is happily married and has a family. He doesn't even want to sign an autograph for me. Not in a mean way. I'm sure he's a lovely individual, but he doesn't dream of me just because I'm in this outfit.
Yeah, it's that whole thing where people that have that perception of cosplayers have obviously never met one. Because if they had, then they would know. You know, I've met plenty of cosplayers, and no one's running around pretending like they're Superman or Batman or whoever. Yeah. You know, like even some of them might not even know that much about the character. They just like the costume, or they thought it looked cool, or maybe they saw the movies but they don't know the comic books. They don't know the intricate details of their lives. It's like no, they're having fun. You know, they're dressing up. They're not trying to be that person. Which
brings back to something that I really wanted to get at. Cosplay is all about, at least for the ladies, I can't speak for these fine gentlemen, but at least for the ladies, we were taught to start dressing up from a very, very young age. All those Disney princess gowns that you can buy at the mall, or even if your mom made them for you, which is awesome for your mom. But, 3 years old, we're getting dressed up. Then you hit puberty, and everyone's like, no, you can't go out in costumes anymore. That makes us very sad inside. And then we discover fandom, and you're like, wait, I can do a whole weekend of dress up. Bring them all the dresses coming with me. And so that's, I feel, what's really motivating a lot of the women that are cosplaying at conventions. Not, I believe if I put this costume on, I'm actually a Nara, despite the fact that you can see, that I'm not. I think it's because, man, she wore some pretty dresses. I want to wear a pretty dress too.
Yeah, it's not, hey, I'm going to dress up as Elektra so I can get laid this weekend.
Although I bet if you did, there's some fetishes that would go along with that.
I mean, if I dressed up as Elektra, I would go with the intention of getting laid that weekend.
That's true. You should grow your beard out a little more first.
Yeah.
You could probably also raise your hourly rate.
Yeah. Well,
it's because of the heels, you know.
The size as well. But to your point, I feel like what people do is they conflate, because there's quote-unquote real-life superheroes, like Phoenix Jones. Like, people assume that's what people are trying to be when they dress up. It's like, no, they're not patrolling the streets, pepper spraying people that are dancing.
Because that'll get you arrested, kids.
Yeah. And demasked. Which no superhero wants.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're assuming that's what you're trying to do, or that's what your mindset is. It's like, that's not at all the case, and it's pretty ridiculous. It just comes from such an ignorant and short-sighted this mindset where people, like I said, go meet a cosplayer and then come back and report to me.
It's Halloween for 3 days in a row, any time of the year, and it's awesome. So another thing, while we're stuck on the clothes, dude, the things that they put the actual nerd characters in these in these shows, Big Bang Theory in particular, no one dresses like that. No one in the entire world dresses like. Okay, you've seen the show more than we have.
I've seen a handful of episodes, but just the way these guys carry themselves, it's almost like it's a very stereotypical Revenge of the Nerds, stuck in the 80s approach. At least as far from what I've seen. And I've seen maybe, I don't know, 5 to 7 episodes, something like that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had to go through a lot of therapy. And I'm here. So.
Yeah.
I'm here. I finally got out, you know.
As you can tell, none of us are huge fans, which is why I'm going to refer to this character as the dude with the master's degree, because I don't remember his actual name. But the way that they dress him and the haircut he has, unless someone is actually cosplaying him as a character, you will not find anyone that looks like that at a convention. Because we're not actually morons. No one's like, hey, you know what I think? I'm going to go into a thrift store and find the 2 things that are the same color and put them on. And even if you do, the other thing that's so crazy about Big Bang Theory in particular, no one has just that as a circle of friends.
Oh, yeah.
Like, someone, if you decided to dress like that unironically, he would come in and say, dude, no. Just no. I'm assuming you would be that kind.
Yeah, I'm pretty harsh.
Take off that Mad Hatter hat.
Oh my, we won't get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And the point being, everyone, like, what nerds usually do in real life, yes, we'll go in and hang out with a ton of other nerds when we have the chance, but most of us are friends with people that we met in high school and college and random social life and your wife's friends and things like that who aren't as obsessed as you are. That's why we have to go to the conventions. You have norms in your life, and they're not just the hot girl across the hall.
Yeah. Mainly her.
That's the only one you know. And the only reason you know is you stalked her. Hello, I'm going to be your friend now.
Here's
You
your
have
mail.
no
I sorted it
choice.
for you.
Go ahead, please.
No, yeah, well, conventions, you know, I just want to expand on your, I was going to expound. Expand on your point where, you know, you're going there to more or less have your needs met. You know, you're going there to geek out.
Yes, I am.
I'm going to roll with
Yes,
it. I'm
I
going to roll
am.
with it. But, you know, me, I'm huge on anime. I'm huge on manga. And I know a lot of those types of characters, and I can't sit down and talk to Prometheus. I don't know if I can talk to you.
No.
Or anybody that's in my circle of friends. I have nobody who I can just sit there and geek out with. You know, so when Naruto comes out, or the next issue of Berserk comes out one day in the next
all have
couple
these
of
niche
moons.
things like this. Like, this week was Dune week at Kitchen Overlord, where I write, because I love Dune. So it's got 6 different Dune recipes. You know why? Because there's not enough sandworms out there that are edible, in my opinion. And there are all these niche fandoms, and I'm amazed. I'm truly amazed that that's actually gotten shared around on the internet, that other people are like, sandworms? Yeah, I'm going to make that when I get home. And by the way, good luck with that. Send me some pictures if you do.
Yeah. There's different ways to eat cucumbers. And if you can get your kids to sit down and eat cucumbers when they look like sandworms,
I was proud of that one.
Yeah.
I was pretty proud of that one.
Yeah.
I'm thinking the bread that no one's going to make because it took like 4 hours.
Yeah.
But still. But I'm also like, I'm really into 90s X-Men because that was, the time when I got into it. And it's, other than him, it's hard to find other people that are like, hey, you want to discuss the X-Men before they got all morbid?
Yeah.
No one's interested unless you go to a convention, in which case you wander around, you find your other fans like that, you make friends, you'll stay Facebook friends or Twitter friends or whatever afterwards, and you might see them once a year at a convention because you all came from different parts of the country.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. But it's not a place where people are going just so they can LARP the whole weekend.
Yeah.
You know, you'll find
There are
people
LARP
like that.
conventions just for that.
Exactly, but people are going up just to celebrate fandom. Just like when people on the 4th of July get up in an Uncle Sam outfit or what. They don't go around and be like, oh, well, 407 years ago, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. You know, no one goes around like that. Yeah.
With him, it has to be
money.
That was a good day right there.
Yeah, but nobody goes around dressing up as George Washington or Abraham Lincoln unless there's a parade, and even that serves its purpose.
Yeah.
You know, and it's the same thing with comic conventions.
Mm-hmm.
There's somebody who decided, hey, I have friends, I can organize this, I have people that'll help fund it, and people will come. It's the Field of Dreams thing. If you build it, they will come.
And with conventions, that's really true. Another thing with clothes I want to address with conventions, you guys have been to a few. I'm a second-generation fan, so I've been going to these things for many, many years. About what percentage of people would you say are actually cosplaying, as opposed to wearing the uniform of a pair of jeans and a nerd t-shirt?
You know, out of all the times I've gone, and it's been about 2 or 3 years worth, there's only been, I couldn't even say it's a whole percent, because it's one person, and it's usually the same person.
Who just loves to dress up.
Yes, and it's usually that person, and that person they encompass who they are. Whether it be Batwoman or some G.I. Joe character.
I go to things like Dragon Con and some of the other bigger ones, and at Dragon Con I'd say on any one day it might be as high as 15%. And that's Dragon Con, where people love them some costumes. Your average convention, and even though that's like everyone is chasing the people in costume because they make great photos, they make great videos, but if you pan away from that and look at everyone else, it's guys that look like the two of them. I actually, with like my kind of not really a costume, but showing some love, would be in the minority. They would be in the majority. Hands down. And they could walk into any restaurant right now. Well, maybe they couldn't because it's them, but people dressed like them could walk into any restaurant right now, be seated, and no one would think they were weird.
Yeah, just to your point, I mean, it's basically all it is a social event. It's no different than some people going to, like, see a football game or whatever. They're going there because everyone has the same interest. They can talk about, back in 1996.
Are you telling me that the football fans don't actually believe that they're the physical embodiment of the ball?
You know, some of them kind of do. Like, if they're, like, the high school quarterback that used to be, you know, something like, I remember I could throw that ball, I could win this game. But for the most part, you know, they're just enjoying it as a spectacle. Yeah.
This is important information that I need to know.
I would like to meet the person that actually thinks that they're the ball. And they just hate the kicker.
And their therapist.
And they want people to dogpile on top of them.
and that would be the furries that are in the sports. So I apologize, my furry friends. I apologize. It's such low-hanging fruit.
It's okay, you're among friends.
So, get into how to do it right, because these are all the things that are wrong with how it's portrayed. Portraying professional fans as being bad guys, portraying it like it's a giant Ren fair, or that we're all kind of mentally disturbed, portraying it with all these, you know, heavily, heavily negatives. You were saying that you have one good example of a show that does it right.
Community.
Yes.
Community.
I agree. And... and you're just going to sit in the corner like, I don't watch shows.
I was waiting for him to elaborate, like, so this is why Community is a good example, so I'll do it instead. So I'm not as familiar with Community, I've only really seen the paintball episode, but basically, the characters aren't insulting. Like, they're fun characters. They're still silly, it's still a comedy, but you're not like, oh my god, that's how they're portraying, you know, nerds or whatever, like, I can't watch
It's clearly made with love, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're lovable characters. Like, okay, and even if you don't necessarily specifically identify with a certain character, you enjoy them because there's something about them that makes them endearing.
Yeah.
And unlike Big Bang Theory, where literally I watch the show and I just curl my fist and I just want to punch something because it's so
I cry
obnoxious.
a single tear anytime it comes on TV because I'm trying to watch something that comes on immediately afterwards.
Yeah, it's tough to get through.
I would say the best example of a good relationship, that sounds like it's more than it is, and I know the fanfic writers do that, but a good friendship in it would be Troy and Abed. Because unlike Big Bang Theory, where the friendships are portrayed as being hugely dysfunctional, Troy and Abed, like, they hang out, they do things that, I mean, they do wacky things, but they also have a realistic-looking friendship that isn't horribly abusive, and that isn't, you get the feeling these people would hang out in real life, whereas I don't think anyone in Big Bang Theory would.
Well, not only that, I mean, even the wacky things that they do are within reasonable means. Like when they make the Doctor Who ripoff.
Oh, Inspector Spacetime.
Yeah, Inspector Spacetime. They're doing it with a camcorder that your dad's probably got tucked away, or you know, kids nowadays probably have just sitting around in their bedroom. Yeah, you can go around and get cardboard boxes and all this crazy stuff. Anybody could make these videos, and that's the whole beauty of it, is that they're doing stuff that anyone can do, and just doing it to the full ability, to basically what their creativity, you know, peaks at. Yeah. You know? I'm fumbling for words here.
You're fine.
But, yeah, I mean, like, anybody can do, like, your creativity is the limit. and all you need is a camcorder and
And
a
on
couple
top
of
of that,
art supplies.
They
and you're
have
good.
friends other than the two of them.
Right.
Like, with Sheldon and the whole batch with Big Bang Theory, you get the feeling they don't interact with anyone else unless they're forced to by law. Whereas with these guys, they're part of the community of Community, and they actually hang out with all the other characters. Yes, they get made fun of sometimes, but they also bring the cool every now and well, not cool,
Yeah.
but the awesome every now and then in their own special Troy and Abed way.
Yeah.
So anybody out there that's thinking about, hey, I know that I watch obscure internet videos, and I would like to have some advice on how to make a much better TV show that would actually appeal to nerds without being horribly insulting. Start with Troy and Abed. Any other advice for people out there that are like, hey, how could we make this better? Because there's a lot of us.
I think that's the thing. It's like, with Big Bang Theory, it's like, assuming they're actually not malicious, which I think they are, but it's like they're going through, it's like people that obviously don't have any friends that are into comic books or sci-fi or whatever, so this is like what their assumption is of what they're like.
Yeah.
So just write them as just entertaining people. Like, you could take a show like, let's say, lost my train of thought now. Like Psych.
Yeah.
Psych isn't considered like a nerd show, but I mean, the two guys are pretty geeky.
But they're adorably geeky.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I think I saw the first season. They had a Dune reference, which made me very happy.
And that's the beautiful thing, is that every episode is consumed to the brim with pop culture reference. You know, it's like, it may not be geeky, but if there was a pop culture version of Jeopardy, they would tie. They would tie, you know? They would beat anybody out there. I know there's writers that help out with all that stuff, but they add a few of the jokes themselves, but they go out of their way for pop culture reference, and there's always episodes where they actually bring in, like, they had, what's his name? Jaleel White, Urkel from Family Matters. They had him on there. They had Freddie Prinze Jr. They have all these other people, and there's always a nod to something that made them famous in their career, or something that was a throwback to the 90s.
It's obviously made with love.
Yeah.
Not try. You know, I have a theory all of a sudden. Those shows that we're talking about, they're doing it well. Psych, Community. They're made with love, but they're obviously made by geeks, but they're not necessarily making the show for geeks. Like, they're not marketed as geek shows, even though geeks love them because it's full of the stuff that we like.
Yeah.
Maybe the key to making a good geek show is to not make a geek show.
Yeah, I think that is the case, actually.
It just happens to have some geek characters in it. Like, you know, the minority representation, actually on both sides of me here, you could have minority geeks in. Oh, heaven forbid, we could actually have some black geeks in there. Is that allowed?
Only in Community.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And he's leaving the show, so.
I think that we're actually going to see more Indian as an Asian Indian geeks than we're going to see African American geeks anytime soon.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
So, sorry. But the point
good.
being that, like, you could just insert them the same way that you insert, like, the fat geek, well, that's true too, the fat girl character in anything, anybody that's supposed to be the comic relief and whatnot, and suddenly the nerds will come. I mean, Nathan Fillion's done a great job of inserting nerd references into Castle all the time, and I think a lot of the people that are still watching Castle,
my mom.
yeah, well, yes, I would say that. It's everybody's mom, and anybody that watched Firefly.
Yeah.
And all the Firefly fans are like, please give us one more nerd reference, please. Please.
It's like they need it just to survive. It's like they need their next fix to go on for the next day.
And my mom's more like, please give us more Nathan Fillion, just a little bit more.
I think the world's
22 and a half minutes isn't enough.
yeah, right. Cut the commercials. More Fillion, damn it.
So who do you think, since these shows are clearly not meant to appeal to actual geeks, the shows that are allegedly geek shows, like, again, Big Bang Theory, Heroes of Cosplay, stuff along those lines, I have a theory on who they're actually meant to appeal to. And I'm curious what you guys' theories would be as well.
I kind of feel like they're meant to appeal to people that don't like geeks and feel like it's like it reinforces what they feel. It's like, oh, these guys, like these geeks are quarantined. They only can talk to each other. They
won't
stupid.
Infiltrate our norms.
Yeah, exactly. And so they can just sit there and laugh at them because it's like, oh, look at these guys are pathetic. This guy dresses like he's from the 70s, unironically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way I phrase that is, it's aimed at your cousin who hates everything that you like as an affirmation that he was always right about you. You have any theories?
Yeah, I have a feeling like shows like Heroes of Cosplay or King of the Nerds, I think those are geared, or it's more like a testing for a market for people who love geek culture, but also love reality junk TV.
Yeah.
and to see if it can actually flourish. Like, what part of reality TV have we not tapped yet, but could make millions off of? And I think that's what these shows, their purpose is to serve that.
I've actually got a little theory on that as well, because I'm full of theories. I think that geeks in general don't like reality shows aimed at geeks, because most of us actually collaborate on doing things. Like, to run a science fiction convention, you need a massive number of volunteers that it's actually costing them time and money to put on this con that you go to. And you're like, oh, I've got to spend $50 to get here. You have no idea how many hours the people in the con put in and how much of their own money they put on just to make this happen. Because that's part of fan culture. If we want to make something like this, the three of us are getting together to do this and collaborate on it. A lot of, like, steampunk costumes, especially the really, really ornate ones, that took multiple people to do. We're a really community-oriented, collaboration type of group of people, and so the whole, like, pit everybody against one another and make them fight and get them all catty just makes us feel sad.
Yeah. And I would just throw a little nod in there, just to show the hard work that it takes. There's actually a group of friends headed by one Kelly Nova, who's a friend of the show for us. Also part of the weirdgirls.com, weird-girls.com, so check it out. But they're for Austin Comic Con, which right now, as of filming this, is the last day of February. They are prepping for Wizard World Austin, which isn't until November.
Yeah.
10 months away. And they're doing a steampunk Justice League.
Nice.
So they're working.
Nice.
She is working on her costume right now to get it ready, to make sure that everything is ready.
Yeah.
It's not some last week thing. So when you see those people at Wizard World Austin, there's going to be like 12. And I think at least 12 of them, all dressed up as the Justice League steampunk version.
And the thing about it is, spending 10 months on that may sound lame to anybody watching this. I don't know why they'd be watching this if they're not. But presumably you made it this far for some reason, because someone had a gun to your head or whatever. Or a phaser, exactly. And you just don't understand that it's not a real laser. But they're not just getting a costume out of it. They're getting a whole Justice League of people to hang out with and be social with while building those costumes. And I hate to break it to you, sometimes they're going to talk about things like, I don't know, those balls that people actually like hit with their feet and run around a giant court for, something along those lines. Sometimes they're going to talk about random things they've eaten. They will talk about their jobs and their children, and not just Justice League. Because it's social. That's the whole point. I'm not saying that cosplayers that sit alone and do it at home aren't being social, because they want to get together with other cosplayers when they get to a convention, like, yay, we're all part of this community. And not everyone has 12 people in town that are willing to do these things with them.
Right.
But don't think that someone's like, 10 months? Seriously? Yeah. Why would you do that? For the community.
Yeah. I think what's funny, too, is some people that that look down on cosplay and spending so much time and effort on costumes, those type of people tend to not actually have hobbies. Yeah. So it's like, I mean, seriously, like, they'd be the type of person that, I don't know, all they're going to do is go home and watch TV. It's like, okay...
I had to interview someone recently who, not an interview for journalism, but like helping somebody else interviewing with jobs. And this one poor candidate, whose name I won't give, but we were trying to, like, so what do you do? What extra qualifications do you bring to the table? Because we've talked to a lot of people. And, like, well, I'm just good at my job. Like, well, what are your hobbies? What do you do outside of... And he was so stressing. Like, I hang out with my kids, and I watch TV. Like, well, do you play video games with your kids? Like, no, we don't know any of that stuff. Do you read? Like, no, the kids are too old to read to them anymore. I mean,
what?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
This guy did not get the job.
We don't allow words in my household.
And I honest to God, like, once he got out of the room, I turned to the guy I was helping out with the interviewing going, I have no idea what this man does with his life. I genuinely do not understand. And I didn't even get my usual, like, that's because you're an overachiever. And he too was like... And hobbies are great. Hobbies are an excuse to get together and be social and have a community, because we all live really far apart from one another. So, yay. The last thing I want to throw in, as far as the people that the shows are aimed at, speaking of haters, I think, my little theory is, they're aimed at all the people that feel like the tech boom has left them behind. Even though Big Bang Theory isn't specifically about computer programmers, it's about a lot of people that are tangentially in the tech industry, or people that emotionally represent the tech industry. Like the stereotypes that a computer programmer has to be good at math. No, they have to be good at logic puzzles. Totally different things. Or that they're all scientists. No, a lot of these guys, like, oh, hey, why don't I explain basic cell division to you? Like, I'm more of a science geek than just about any actual coder that I know. But it still represents all of that. And so everybody's like, man, I missed the 90s when I could have just beat these guys up, and now they're my boss. Can watch a show like Big Bang Theory and feel validated.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a very accurate theory. I can see a lot of the people that work on that show where, yeah, that is the case. It's like, I don't know, it's like almost like they're just like resentful of technology as a whole, you know. It's like, oh, now I have all these gizmos, you know. I liked when, you know, we just had cassette players. And
I liked it when we just had flint that we napped into arrowheads and just slaughtered anyone that came near us. And bullied mammoths.
Then the Bronze Age came and ruined everything.
I tell you, oh, those Trojans!
Those damn geeks.
Ruining things since BC 1200. Well, I think that wraps it up, guys. What do you think?
I believe so. I think we covered everything pretty extensively.
All right. Join us next week for another Extra Ordi-Nerdy where we may or may not talk about mammoths.
We may.